Sam I am.
Last year's Serious Sam: The First Encounter was one of the year's biggest surprises. I don't think anyone could have expected that little game to be quite that fun and quite that good. It came out of a previously unheard of Croatian developer. It retailed for only $20. It looked like this mindless, simple little action game, but it was incredibly fun, looked quite good, sounded great, and just really combined a lot of the best stuff that both single-player and multiplayer shooters have to offer. And we ended up awarding it with our highest honor, our Game of the Year award, as a result of its really incredibly successful design. So along comes the sequel called Serious Sam: The Second Encounter, predictably enough. And, you know, going into it, you might expect it to be just a lot like the first game, because the first game did sort of boil down to these pretty repetitive, although very intense battles against hundreds of monsters at the same time. But the surprising thing about the second encounter is that it's even better than the first game. It's just much more creative, looks even better, much more fun, and just everything that was great about the first game is present in the second game in spades. It's a game that you could easily recommend to anyone who plays computer games for fun. If you didn't know better, you might expect that the second encounter is just sort of a mission pack, just a bunch of new Serious Sam levels without that much new to offer that you didn't find in the first game. But that couldn't be further from the truth, because this new game just feels quite a bit different than the first one, aside from the core intensity and madness that characterized the original game. On paper, the new additions in the second encounter are pretty basic. There are 3 new weapons. There's a chainsaw, which is kind of a throwback to the weapon from id Software's Doom. There's a sniper rifle, which you get in plenty of other shooters, and there's a flamethrower. 2 of those 3 new weapons, the sniper rifle and the flamethrower, are actually essential to the gameplay now, and altogether you've got 13 different weapons that you'll be using constantly throughout the game. And I mean that. You're using the vast majority of those weapons as you're fighting dozens of different kinds of monsters and dozens of monsters simultaneously at any given moment. The fights are just really intense and quite tactical, really, because you're dealing with enemies shooting at you from far away and attacking you at close range, and you're scrambling to find the right weapon and so forth. It's just really a rush to play the game. No one's expecting Serious Sam to be a serious game, so this gave the designers a lot of creative license to just put in lots of crazy, wacky stuff in every level. But the first thing you'll notice is that these levels are just absolutely huge. These are the biggest levels in any shooter ever, easily. Many of them take longer than an hour to beat, and you'll rack up kill counts approaching, 1,000 enemies, if not more. That's just so far in excess of what you'd find in most shooters, like you wouldn't believe. Besides that, just lots of surprising things keep happening. For instance, in one part, you walk onto a bridge that crumbles beneath you, and suddenly you find yourself bouncing up and down on like an elastic floor, and the room starts filling with monsters, including those great beheaded kamikazes from the first game, and they're all screaming at you, and you don't know what's going on. You're just spraying the room with your flamethrower, and you're just hearing their screams oscillating up and down because of the Doppler shift, and it's just so much more audacious than anything that's come before it. There are only 12 levels in the second encounter, but since all of them are huge, the game is actually quite long, and longer than most of the shooters that have been released in the last year. It'll take you probably about 15 hours to finish the single-player game, and it's just a total blast. I can't stress that enough. Graphically, the game looks even better than the first. There are 3 distinct environments now, rather than just the Egypt levels found all throughout the first game. The 3 environments look great. You've got like kind of Mesoamerican, South American type stuff through the first third, then you're in Babylon through the second third, and then you're in like medieval Europe, a Transylvania looking place, through the last part of the game. And each of these areas just looks great. The engine renders huge levels. You'll see some speck of a high-rise off in the background, and you could walk right up to it and go inside. The levels switch seamlessly from indoor to outdoor environments, and yeah, you'll rack up these gigantic kill counts, and it's really impressive that the levels are as seamless as they are. It's quite a testament to the technology behind the game. The audio in general is great in the game. You actually have to keep your ears open as you're playing, because you can often hear monsters before you can see them, and they all sound different, so during battle you'll have to listen carefully for what's out there so you know what you're up against. There's a different music track for every level that fits really well with each respective level, and it picks up when the action heats up and then cools down when, in those rare times when you're not fighting something. Just like the original Serious Sam game, this one retails for only $20, which is just a total steal. The single-player game alone is well worth that money, but of course the second encounter includes a great multiplayer mode as well. The whole game is playable in cooperative mode with many different players. You could hop right now onto an internet server and just have at it with a bunch of other players fighting against even more monsters than you'd normally be facing, and it's just incredibly fun. Since the levels are even better in the second encounter than in the first game, the cooperative mode is even better than before, and the first game was really great for its cooperative mode. There's also a deathmatch mode that you could play, including 8 deathmatch levels straight from Crow Team, but beyond that the game ships with what's called Seriously Warped Deathmatch, which is a popular deathmatch mod that includes more than 20 different levels, new weapons, new modes of play like Capture the Flag, and you just get a complete single-player and multiplayer experience here right out of the box. There are even mod-making tools if you're into that sort of thing. Even if you're faint at heart, Serious Sam even offers options to turn the blood green or turn it off, or even turn on hippie blood where the enemies bleed flowers and confetti and stuff like that, rather than the red stuff we're all familiar with from shooters. So even if you're squeamish, you don't have an excuse not to own this game. I really believe that this is a must-have game. There's no excuse for anyone who likes action games not to give this a shot, especially at the price they're asking. It's really an incredibly fun, very endearing, funny game that you could recommend to just about anybody, and chances are they'll have a total blast with it and be playing it for a long time.